day 18, and it is the calm before the storm. We're hosting a birthday party tonight. So I am here amidst the chaos, coming to you with an episode that I think is going to be intensely personal. I really feel that it is. Here's the idea that dropped in for me ahead of this. And by the way, it's Saturday, so we're going to do a card pull. Is that I want to talk about why I feel like I have actually been hidden for a really long time. And I'm calling this like the visibility paradox. Like it's this concept of for the longest time, and you may feel this way. This all leads into the identity work that we've been talking about throughout the transmission series, like the performative self, right? For the longest time, I was literally visible. My voice, my brand, my body, my face, my everything. It was visible everywhere, on the internet, on TV, on the radio, everywhere, every single day. And I would get recognized wherever I went. And then when I left the newsroom, I felt invisible. And then you know what made me feel even more invisible? And I was not ready for this, was after I sold my website. So I think this is going to be like a 2-part weekend series, because today I want to talk about the energetics of that. And then tomorrow I can talk more about the specifics of like what I did to sell the business and like the strategy of it all. I think might make sense for my brain. But here's like this paradox that I've really been wrestling with is like, I had been visible for my entire career. And yet when I think back, as I was letting that all go, really what got in my way, if I'm being honest, is that I wasn't ready to be my full self. I didn't know how. I didn't know how to be in the world without a label. So I'm really wrestling through and I'm chewing on this. Like, why did I decide to do this transmission series this way? Because this is an act of devotion for me as much as it is an act of, parsing out my thoughts and rebuilding myself and getting back in touch with myself and what I am comfortable saying and how I am comfortable showing up. Because for the visibility paradox is that I felt really visible for a long time, but not fully seen. And the hiccup was I had to stop and shut down and think about what does that actually mean, right? My job, whether you can, look at this as through when I was in TV, and if you have a job, it can be the same for you. You don't have to be on TV. You can be in corporate. You can work for another company. You can have a job title, right? This is what I'm talking about. The energy of that title is protective. It gives you a script. It gives you a role. It gives you a place in time and in relation and contextual relation to other people. It allows you, in many cases, it justifies and gives you permission to create distance from who you really are and the outside world. And for me, it was like triple fold because of what I did. That was actually how I was trained. I was trained to learn how to separate myself. I became professional at it. And then when I left and I lost the identity, which we've talked about, but I'm realizing now I also lost the protection of the role. The identity was part of the protection. And then here I went trying to build a business that required visibility, but I had no role to hide behind. I had no placard to wave in the air. I had to learn how to just show up as me, my thoughts, my perspective. And here is the realization and, kind of the confession is that I had no sweet clue how to do that. It was terrifying for me. Sharing what I thought. I remember having conversations with my husband and my friends at the time being like, I was never taught how to express what I think. And I would watch other people online and I'd be like, wow, they have no problem just coming out and being like, here's what I think about that. And I would sit back and I would genuinely freeze. It caused me to freeze because I had been trained to not necessarily not think, but to create this extreme separation between what I thought and what I expressed. And I know that some of you are like, what? Really? You had trouble with that? Yes, I did. For a very long time. It caused me a mass of anxiety. And it snowballed because I wasn't aware of it at first, right? I was like, yeah, I can talk, no problem. I can show up, no problem. But ask me what I think about something? No. So that's why this transmission series is actually really important for me, because it is a devotional act of me sharing what I think with you. And I know that's important. I know this is where I actually connect, but it really is a paradox. I had been trained for so long to hold space for other people's stories, whether it was news stories or brand stories or students' stories, their growth, working for other people and their stories, helping you find your story. If you were following me back in 2019, 2020, 2021, I was saying, I'll help you find your story. I didn't know my own. I couldn't tell you what I thought about my own. That was a protective mechanism for me. At the end of this all, here's the lesson, is that being known for your work is totally different than being known for who you are and what you think. And one is way more valuable than the other. So here's a few things that I think I have also uncovered. I was afraid of being seen without this like protective layer. I also had no idea who I was outside of being a journalist and then outside of being a blogger. There was a huge identity crash that happened then that we'll talk about a little bit maybe tomorrow. But I was also really afraid of being mediocre, because when you leave something and you step into something new, you are going to be a beginner. And that means you're going to be not very good at some things. And I was leaving, where I was one of the largest bloggers, certainly in this region. And guess what? As soon as I sold my blog, they kicked me out of all the local blogging groups. I was no longer valuable to them. So it was like a self-fulfilling prophecy. I was like, great, without that identity, nobody likes me. Great. Without pandering to them and not telling them, they didn't like how big I got. They were really threatened by how big I got and how successful I was. And they found a way to say, you're no longer for us. See ya. Even though I'd been part of the community for like more than a decade. That really hurt. And it fed this fear and this rut and this hole that I fell into that, wow, without that, I am worthless. So I sure as heck can't be both worthless and mediocre. I was afraid of all of that. And then what happens is you're feeling this way. You've left something, you're worried about sucking at the new thing, you don't feel like you have any value, you're not sure how to express what you think because you've never had to really do that before. And then somebody comes around and tells you to be authentic. And you're like, well, if I'm being authentic, I'm just going to tell you that I am a ball of nerves and I'm afraid of failing and I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow, let alone next year. And no, I don't have my whole thing planned out. And no, I'm not entirely sure where I'm going to get my next client from. And all of these things, that would be being authentic. And then you think, I can't say that. I need armor. I can't say that. Here's what I've learned. Yes, you can, but don't say it all at once. Don't say it all at once. Yes, you can say that. Yes, you can say, this is a little much right now. You can. So here's what I had to learn to get to this point of being able to, commit to this crazy project and pivot my business multiple times. And, the truth of the matter is, I think you've picked up on this, is that I'm really leaning back into holding space for women, entrepreneurs, coaching, strategic advising, stuff that I loved doing. And I'm trying to do it differently now. And it's really scary. It's really, really scary. Am I 100% positive it's going to work out for me? No. Am I pretty sure it will? Yeah. Not 100%. So I had to learn how to separate my visibility from my performance. And I think for a lot of you, that's probably where you're sitting, where you're being told, just show up, just show up, just show up. But the whole point of this transmission series is really to peel back the layer of where are you performing? Because that is going to lead to exhaustion, burnout, sickness, resentment, all the things you don't want. You can just be here working through it publicly, like I am. Not in the same method I am, maybe. But listen, whatever you do have to energetically separate your visibility from your performance. That's key. And then I had to do this, so I'll share this with you, is that I had to redefine what it meant to be seen. Because for a while, part of my job was when I was seen, I was being judged. Like quite literally, I would be judged on my appearance, on how I said my words, on what words I did say, what words I didn't say, on who I talked to, on who I didn't talk to, on how quickly I spoke, on how slowly I spoke. I was literally being evaluated as I was being seen. I was being held to a standard. But I had to reassess that. I had to redefine that. And for me now, being seen is simply being witnessed. It's being witnessed in the same space. It's offering a transmission, which is why this is called the transmission series. It's offering a transmission that is being received fully by someone else. Even if it's just one person, you're being seen. And here are two things that come together that I've realized too, is that I had to decide what to be afraid of. And when I made that decision, I then had to commit to facing things that scared me. So was I afraid that people wouldn't like me? Yeah, after I got kicked out of blogging communities locally, totally was afraid of that. Totally was. But I had to make a decision as to whether or not that was going to drive me forward. And I realized it wasn't. Because I think that there are people in those communities that feel kind of bad about how they treated me. Others have no idea what happened. And that's just one example. There are multiple examples. And then I had to think, am I afraid of being seen as inauthentic? Yes, I am. Which is why I really get into my body before I share anything. And if I'm not feeling it, I won't share it. Because it's not going to be authentic. Am I afraid of not being interesting enough to the right people? Yeah. To the wrong people? No. But I had to get really specific about the fears and which ones I was going to let drive me forward. Am I afraid of wasting my life? Yes. Worthy fear. So, from that, I had to decide, what am I going to be brave about? I'm going to be brave about taking steps to reconnect with myself so I'm not performing, so that I break the paradox, so that I separate my being seen with my being witnessed. So in all of this, what I've learned, day 18, is that the visibility that actually matters at the end of the day is the vulnerable kind. It's really funny when I think back. It's like all of those years of me doing all of those things. And the truth is that probably this 30-day podcasting sprint means more to me and the next steps in my business than those 10, 15 years when I was being seen every day in mainstream. Isn't that funny? Because this level of being seen is true to me. This is me. It means so much more. It's the vulnerable kind. And it's not in the let me tell you your big T, small t trauma kind, but it's vulnerable in the sense that I'm now able to say, I don't have this all figured out. And I'm showing up here for you anyway. And that's the hardest thing to do. So this whole series is really teaching me, and I hope it's teaching you by consuming it, that you really don't need that protection, right? Ask yourself, who's holding up that protective armor? Because it's just you. And you can put it down piece by piece. You can let it fall all at once. right? I'm going to pull a card here. So I'm just going to start shuffling. But as I do, I'm going to give you your little devotional for today. And the practice is ask yourself, and I guarantee in certain parts of your life and definitely your business or your working life, you're hiding. So ask yourself, what are you really afraid of telling people? What are you really afraid they're going to see? What's the fear under the fear? How can we work to get in touch with that? Right? How can we let that paradox not be true for us? That we're seen but not visible. That we're visible but not seen. How can we do that? So with that question out in the ether, I'm going to pull us a card because it is Saturday. And here we go. I'm just going to take the top one. Love this. Beautiful. Angel wings with a little moon and a crown. And it says, I slow down and I listen to the guidance that's available to me. And the thought that comes to mind as I say that is, I'm abundantly aware that my voice in this episode has slowed. This is not my typical cadence. Go back and listen to the episode I did about LinkedIn a couple days ago, 3 days ago, 2 days ago. I was talking way faster. And today I'm slow. So maybe this is me channeling. Slow down. Listen to the guidance of this episode. Tomorrow we'll be back to normal speed. I'll see you then.